Okay, I didn't realize there was a 15-minute time cap on these videos. Luckily, I'm almost done. So as I was mentioning, there is a big gender gap between the males and the females, primarily because of that standard put on women to be thin, to be fit, whereas males, it's not always ideal to be thin. Like, the idea is you want to be that buff, that big muscled. And how do you get that? Eating. Hence, I think that's why the binge eating disorder is a lot more prevalent in males, even though it's females, it's still way, way higher. Let's move on to some of the results also they found from this study. They found the lifetime prevalence was consistently 3 to 8 times as high among women as men for all eating disorders. They found the highest eating disorders to be prevalent in France, Belgium, and Italy. The lifetime prevalence of eating disorders showed that the majority of cases had their beginning between 10 and 20 years of age. If not developed under 20, the chances for developing anorexia nervosa were 0%, and bulimia very low. This is for this study only, so let's remember that. That is the limiting factor. This does not mean for everybody. If you don't develop anorexia nervosa by 20 years old, you're never going to get it. Like, that is not true. For this study, though, that is what they found. Let's talk about Africa. So this is another interactive data chart I found from Our World in Data. This is 2017, males versus females. Something I found very interesting. I highlighted just strictly Africa here, and as you can see, the prevalence of eating disorders pretty far down in both males and mostly females. As you can see, the United States is out here, Australia's way out there, Spain, New Zealand, Luxembourg, Austria, Italy, way out here. The prevalence rates for all of Africa are fairly low. We'll get to that. Asia, similar. A lot of the eating disorders are down here, very low prevalence. Couple, as you get further out, we have Japan, Singapore, but majority, low prevalence. So it seems we're seeing the highest prevalences in Europe, United States. We haven't talked about Australia, but Australia. Let's talk about them. So in Asia, despite what that graph may have shown, eating disorders are on the rise with the rise of Western TV and social media. Eating disorders are on the rise in Asia, however, they are still way, 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 way less than the prevalence in the United States and in Europe. Something interesting I found was in the late 1990s, the government put in this program into school systems called Trim and Fit, and it was essentially to help combat child obesity. I don't know what this program did, but 11.1% of anorexia patients that were in Asia were part of this program when they were children. So I'm not sure what this program was doing, but that definitely contributes to the rise of eating disorders. And it actually was proven that in Fiji, small island, the ideal body type was always a softer, rounder figure. But with westernized television and social media, that ideal body type began to shift. In, late 90s, we're talking slim, 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 slim woman, especially people in the United States. That was the body type, was to be as slim as you could be. Japan, the prevalence estimates range from 25.2 to 30.7 cases of eating disorders per 100,000 people. And in Hong Kong, there is a huge rise of this fat-phobic society. And I didn't make that term up. That is a term I found on multiple sites describing people with this fear of being fat. Let's go to Africa. In Ghana, 600 middle school girls were surveyed on their eating behaviors regarding anorexia. And as a note, all of these girls had food available to them. This wasn't a very poor country where there wasn't food to begin with. They all had food. They were choosing not to eat, some of them. However, only a small number of girls were found to have low weight because of dieting behaviors. These behaviors consisted of religious fasting, dieting due to stress, and to gain the feeling of control, which if you ever have known someone with an eating disorder, they use that term a lot. They talk about control. They talk about how I feel so out of control in my life. I feel I have no control over things in my own life, that eating is something that I have complete control over. It gives them this false sense of empowerment, I guess, with themselves, that they have control over something and they feel more grounded because of it, even though it's severely hurting them. Treatments are difficult because a lot of times, as we talked about with the different eating disorders, people are they're very good at hiding it. And it's hard to get treatment when, one, you don't want it, two, it's hard to notice it. And they talk about how an eating disorder that requires treatment from doctors for, physical health, therapists with all the mental and emotional behaviors that come with it, and a nutritionist instilling in you good eating habits. So, this is my portion of the presentation. A couple questions I want to pose to you. Why do we think that Western, so United States, celebrity figures, they've had such an impact on eating disorders, especially as mentioned in countries like Asia? Why? Why could that be a thing? Why is the westernized culture so idolized, especially when it comes to body types, when we actually find out that in other countries, the ideal body type is a softer, more rounder figure, or a heavier set figure? That's my question I pose to you. Why does westernized culture impact eating disorders so much around the entire world, not just in the westernized culture in the United States?